Most women waste months, sometimes years, playing emotional detective. You spend late nights decoding a three-word text message, replaying every micro-interaction in your head, asking your group chat, does he actually like me, or am I just convenient? But here is the brutal, undeniable truth about male psychology. Men do not express deep attraction the way women expect them to. When a man is truly falling for you, he doesn't just use romantic words. His brain undergoes a massive chemical shift that forces his behavior to change in ways he cannot even control. If you want to master high-value attraction and never have to guess a man's true intentions ever again, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Let's make sure you never settle for breadcrumbs or mixed signals again. You see, society tells us that if a man is crazy about you, he'll stand outside your window with a boombox. He'll send grand, sweeping love letters, but real, deep masculine investment is almost never that loud at the beginning. In fact, real obsession looks almost counterintuitive. It shows up in subtle, involuntary psychological leaks, behaviors driven by his subconscious mind before his pride even realizes what's happening. I remember working with a client named Sarah. She was convinced the guy she was seeing was pulled back, emotionally distant, and simply not that interested. Why? Because he wasn't sending essay-length text messages during his workday. But when we actually looked at his real-world behavior, when we analyzed how his brain was prioritizing her, the evidence was overwhelming. He was exhibiting a specific psychological pattern that proved he was utterly consumed by her. She was just looking for the wrong language. Psychology shows us that words are cheap because words are conscious. Anyone can learn the script of charm, but cognitive focus, physical energy, subconscious prioritization, those are impossible to fake. When a man's brain assigns high value to a woman, his entire evolutionary wiring kicks in to protect, pursue, and integrate her into his reality. In this video, we are breaking down the 6 specific psychological tricks men subconsciously use when they are hopelessly in love with you. And I don't use the word tricks lightly. These are hidden behavioral patterns that reveal his true feelings before he even has the courage to say them out loud. Most people think trick number 1 is just a man being polite or helpful, but evolutionary psychology proves it is actually an involuntary survival instinct a man only displays when he secretly views you as a permanent fixture in his life. When you learn to spot these signals, you instantly stop chasing validation. You shift from a place of anxiety to a place of total power. But before we reveal that first behavioral shift, I need to give you a serious warning. There is a massive emotional trap hidden inside trick number 3 that 90% of women mistake for true love, when in reality, it is actually a major psychological red flag designed to manipulate you. So let's strip away the dating noise, dismantle the myths, and look at what is really happening inside a man's mind when he decides you are the only woman in the room. Let's talk about that first behavioral shift, the one most women completely misread as simple politeness. Trick number 1 is what I call the hero's dilemma, or eager problem solving. When a man is casually interested in you, he will offer sympathy. If you tell him your tire is flat or your boss is driving you insane, he'll say, "Oh man, that sucks, I'm so sorry." But when a man is crazy about you, his brain shifts from passive sympathy to active, almost irrational intervention. Evolutionary psychology tells us that a man's core drive in romantic attachment is competency and protection. The moment he sees a problem in your life, his mind treats your inconvenience as his personal mission. He doesn't just want to comfort you, he wants to be the source of relief in your life. If he's driving across town to fix something you didn't even explicitly ask him to fix, that isn't just him being a nice guy. That is an involuntary survival instinct kicking in. He is subconsciously proving his value to lock in his position as your primary protector. Now, that brings us straight into trick number 2, which operates on an even deeper neurobiological level, cognitive intrusiveness, or what I call micro-checking. Think about how your own brain works when you are falling for someone. You don't just think about them during scheduled dates. They intrude on your thoughts while you are standing in line for coffee, driving home, or reading an email. The exact same thing happens in the male brain, driven by massive spikes in dopamine. When a man is falling, his mind constantly seeks another hit of that reward circuit. So how does this manifest in his behavior? He starts reaching out over the most mundane, non-essential things. He sends a random photo of a dog that looks like yours, a meme that references a joke from 3 weeks ago, or a text that simply says, "Just thought of you." There is zero practical reason for the communication other than one thing. He is trying to maintain an open emotional loop with you throughout his day. He wants to keep a thread of connection constantly active because your presence has become his brain's primary source of stimulation. While these first two tricks show you exactly where his active focus and energy are going, trick number 3 reveals something far more profound. It exposes a rare psychological state a man only allows himself to enter when he feels safe enough to completely surrender his ego to you. When a man moves past surface level infatuation, his behavior shifts from trying to impress you to allowing himself to be known by you. But as I warned you earlier, this is where 90% of women walk straight into a devastating emotional trap, because there is a fine line between a man showing genuine psychological vulnerability and a man using calculated weakness to disarm your boundaries. If you get this wrong, you will mistake a toxic manipulator for a man who is falling for you, and if you get it right, you'll instantly spot the exact moment he decides you are the safe haven he has been searching for his entire life. So how do you tell the difference between a man who is opening his heart to you and a man who is simply playing on your empathy? This brings us directly to trick number 3, vulnerability exposure, or the lowering of the masculine armor. From the time men are young boys, society conditions them to project invulnerability. We are taught to hide doubt, suppress fear, and put on a mask of absolute control. So when a man is just casually dating you, that mask stays firmly in place. He'll show you his success, his humor, his ambition, the polished version of who he wants you to think he is. But when he is genuinely falling in love, the weight of keeping up that performance around you becomes unbearable. He wants you to see the unvarnished reality. He starts sharing stories of his past failures, anxieties about his career, or wounds from his childhood that he actively hides from his closest male friends. He isn't looking for you to fix him. He is showing you his underbelly because his subconscious mind has decided that you are a safe haven. Now, here is the massive emotional trap I warned you about in part 1. Toxic manipulators know that vulnerability creates instant, unearned intimacy. They will trauma dump on date 2, telling you tragic stories of their exes or childhood pain, not because they trust you, but because they want to fast-track emotional attachment and disarm your natural boundaries. True psychological vulnerability from a high-value man is earned over time, earned through mutual safety. If he shares something deeply private and then looks slightly uncomfortable or quiet afterward, as if he can't believe he just let that slip, that is real. That is an involuntary lowering of his guard. Once a man feels that rare level of emotional safety with you, it triggers trick number 4, the inclusion play, which is the psychological phenomenon of future anchoring and social claiming. Think about how a man operates when he is keeping his options open. He plans in micro windows. He texts you on Thursday night for Friday plans. He keeps your shared world isolated from the rest of his life. But when a man is crazy about you, his mind naturally begins to map out a future with you in it. He starts making offhand references to events 3, 6, or 12 months down the road. We should go to that restaurant when it opens in the fall. My sister is getting married next summer. You'd love her. He doesn't even frame it as a big conversation about commitment. He just seamlessly weaves you into his future timeline as if your presence there is an absolute given. At the same time, he engages in social claiming. He enthusiastically brings you into his inner circle. He introduces you to his best friends, his family, his mentors. Why? Because bringing a woman into his core community is a high-risk move for a man unless he is completely sold on her value. By anchoring you in his social ecosystem, his subconscious is sending a loud, clear message to the world: she is taken and she is mine. Now, understanding how he anchors you into his future is critical. But trick number 5 is something most women completely overlook because it looks like a simple physical habit. In reality, neuroscientists have discovered it is an involuntary physical manifestation of deep emotional bonding, a behavioral shift so automatic that he couldn't stop doing it even if he tried. And more importantly, if he isn't demonstrating this subtle physical signal, even his promises about the future could be nothing more than temporary emotional hype. That physical habit I just mentioned, the one neuroscientists have pinned down as an absolute sign of emotional attachment, is trick number 5, involuntary protection and physical stewardship. When a man's brain assigns high romantic value to a woman, His ancient evolutionary hardwiring wakes up. It bypasses his conscious thoughts entirely. Watch how he behaves when you walk down a busy city street. Without pausing to think, does he instinctively shift to walk on the outside, putting his body between you and traffic? When you enter a crowded venue, does his head subtly scan the room, maintaining an active awareness of your physical location and comfort level? If you're cold, does he take off his jacket before you even finish asking for it? Most women dismiss these gestures as chivalry or old-school manners, but behavioral psychology shows us it is something far more primal. It is physical stewardship. A man who is merely entertained by you enjoys your presence, but a man who is crazy about you assumes responsibility for your well-being. His nervous system literally registers your safety and physical ease as an extension of his own. That brings us directly into trick number 6, which is perhaps the most profound behavioral pattern of them all: neurobiological mirroring and rapid behavioral adaptation. Psychology shows us that when human beings experience deep emotional alignment, our mirror neurons fire at an accelerated rate. But when a man is falling hopelessly in love with you, this mirroring goes far beyond adopting your body language or matching your vocal cadence. It manifests as rapid behavioral adaptation based on tiny details you shared in passing. Think about it this way. You casually mentioned 3 weeks ago that you dislike a specific type of coffee or that loud environments stress you out after a long day at work. A man who is just coasting will completely forget those details because his cognitive real estate is occupied elsewhere. But a man who is utterly smitten will quietly adapt. The next time you see him, he's bought the exact alternative coffee you love. When planning your next dinner, he picks a quiet, intimate corner table without making a big deal out of it. He is quietly altering his habits, his preferences, and his actions to align with your emotional comfort. His subconscious mind is running a constant background process, asking one simple question: how do I keep her emotional state elevated? Now, you have the full picture. All 6 psychological tricks, from the eager problem solving of the hero's dilemma to the vulnerability of dropping his armor, all the way to involuntary physical stewardship and neurobiological adaptation. But here is the dangerous truth that no one else in the dating advice world is willing to tell you. Knowing these 6 signs is completely useless. In fact, it can be actively dangerous if you don't understand the underlying psychological mechanism that inspires a man to maintain them over the long haul. Because if you spot these signs and react the wrong way, you walk straight into the single biggest mistake women make when a man shows intense interest: a subtle frame shift that instantly destroys your high-value standing and causes him to pull back, even if he was completely crazy about you 10 minutes ago. In these final minutes, we are going to fix that forever. I am going to show you how to take these 6 signs and turn yourself into the ultimate high-value catalyst. Here is the devastating mistake most women make the moment they spot these 6 psychological tricks. They hand over all their power. You see these signs, your heart leaps, and your brain immediately shifts from evaluating him to trying to hold on to him. You start over-investing. You make yourself endlessly available. You reward his micro-efforts with macro-surrender. And in doing so, you break the very psychological dynamic that made him fall for you in the first place. Psychology proves that a man does not fall in love merely because of how incredible you are. A high-value man falls in love with who he becomes when he is around you. When you maintain your standards, your boundaries, and your rich, independent life, you create a psychological mirror. His brain recognizes that earning your affection requires his absolute best masculine energy. But the minute you drop your boundaries just because he showed a few signs of attraction, the mystery dissolves, the chase ends, and the psychological momentum halts instantly. Think about it this way: signs of attraction are not a guarantee of commitment. They are simply an invitation to see if he is worthy of your world. I remember talking to a client who told me, "Matthew, he's doing all 6 of these things. He plans future trips, he protects me, he checks in constantly. So why hasn't he asked me to be exclusive?" When we looked closer, the answer was obvious. She was accepting all the benefits of a dedicated relationship without requiring him to step up to a clear, high-value standard. She was giving away exclusive emotional access for free. To become what I call the high-value catalyst, you must understand the balance of high warmth and high standards. High warmth means you appreciate his effort, you lean into his protection, and you validate his vulnerability. But high standards mean your time, your emotional investment, and your commitment are never given away simply because a man shows potential. They are earned through consistent, long-term alignment between his words and his actions. When you operate from this framework, an incredible shift happens. You stop obsessing over whether he likes you, and you start focusing on whether he is meeting the standard required to stay in your life. You cease being a detective looking for breadcrumbs of male attention, and you become the prize that inspires a man to step up, lock in, and fight to keep you. A real man, the right man, will never make you feel crazy for having standards. He won't run away when you ask for clarity. He will respect you even more for it. The behavioral shifts, the involuntary protection, the future planning, they won't be temporary tricks he plays for a few weeks to win you over. They will become the baseline of how he treats you for the rest of your lives together. So I want you to take a deep breath, step out of the anxiety of decoding his behavior, and step into your complete self-worth. I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Which of these 6 psychological tricks has he been showing you recently? And more importantly, are you holding the high-value standard you deserve? Drop your thoughts below. Let's have a real conversation, and I'll see you in the next video.